Good morning and welcome to another episode of Iconic Freedom, the Formula. We are setting the standard for accountability, the ownership of your choices, and responsibility, the ability to respond to those choices. Let each care for self, and all will be cared for. Hit that like button if you would, and share this with your family and friends. You never know if they're going to be able to get something out of this, and it might help them on their journey. If you want to subscribe, the link is down below. You're probably thinking, did I already make it to the end of this podcast? No, you did not. I actually decided to hit that tag on the front end of this instead of the back end of this podcast. But today I want to talk about the forensics of reality. And I chose a couple of clips that I thought were really fascinating, and we'll talk about them after each one. But I thought they were very interesting in terms of what is reality, and are people in reality? And are we looking at letting each care for self so that all can be cared for? And what is reality? Reality is the absence of emotion. We've talked about how emotion, they're just these moments, the scintilla of these moments that within your body, that your body is telling you to do something or to pay attention to something. It's not a place to live. It's just an indicator for you so that you can take action for something else, which is the part of responsibility and accountability. Is that it's one thing to be responsible. The next thing is your accountability is what action are you going to take in the face of taking responsibility and saying that you own something. So here we go. This is a really fun one in Texas, of course, which I think is very interesting because I lived in Texas and I very much enjoyed it. And this particular moment does not surprise me.
Hey, I'm sitting here in Houston at, this is Channelview or Baytown?
This is Baytown.
This is Baytown, Texas. And this officer here is just checking in the back of my trailer for some vandals. And this is what he told me I need, or this is what he said I need in Texas when I'm at a truck stop.
Here in Texas, at this location, PD and myself would recommend that you have your gun on you. So if anyone tries to steal off of your truck or your trailer, you shoot them.
And because this is considered...
This is considered your home. Here in Texas, you are protecting your home and your belongings that go to your home. So anyone that's trying to, present themselves as a threat, shoot them down.
Right on. I wish I had a gun with me. Right on. Thank you, officer.
You're so welcome.
You have a great night.
Welcome. You too.
Bye-bye.
I thought it was a great moment. Everyone knows in Arizona, Texas, and there are some other places, obviously in the country, that you can open carry, you can conceal carry. Some of these states, you don't have to have a permit, just the fact that you own a gun. And it kind of freaks people out, I think, that are anti-gun because they don't realize that you still have to, when you go purchase a gun, you still have to fill out a form, and you can't be a felon and all that kind of good stuff, and they have to run it to make sure, and yada, yada, yada. So all that stuff that you hear out there about, anybody could just go get a gun, that's not necessarily true. You can if you want to get it on the black market, where you've got people that have stolen guns, and now they're selling guns basically out of the back of their car. But if you're trying to do something legit, you cannot do it that way. And I always think it's funny that the anti-gun people never address that issue. They never address mental illness of people that wind up shooting other people, but they also never address the fact that if the guns are obtained illegally, what do you think that's going to do by passing another law? No person, no man has ever had a law that would stop him from doing that which he is hell-bent on doing. So there you go. Okay, so in terms of reality, let's talk about reality in this particular situation. Absence of emotion, you're listening to the logic and reason of not just the driver of that truck, but also of the police officer that is telling you that it is your responsibility, right? And the action that you take is your accountability to protect yourself. Sure, they can be there, but what's that saying? When moments count, the police are minutes away. And if you are taking care of self, let each care for self and all will be cared for, then, that smiling officer there who was very kind to tell this guy what the expectations are and what his rights are in that sense, are not needed because you can take care of yourself and you can handle yourself. I did think it was pretty funny, though, that the guy said that, I wish I had a gun with me. And I thought, that's interesting being a truck driver that you would not. That, you would not be in a state or live in a state where you could obtain one. And even if you don't declare it legally, that at least you, in a sense that, you're not going through every state. Sometimes you might drive through a state and you have it in your car and, you're not worried about it because you're obeying, in essence, the traffic laws. So you shouldn't draw attention to yourself. A lot of times when those situations happen, that's because people have drawn attention to themselves and then they get themselves in trouble because, they want to kind of get into their emotions and not pay attention to their own responsibility of that stuff. But in any case, I thought this one was a lot of fun, and I wanted to pop this in here as this is a moment of reality. This is the forensics of reality. You let each care for self, and all are taken care of, and all are cared for, right? And that in doing so, you are protecting yourself. You are not outsourcing the reality of your life. You are staying out of your emotion and you're staying in your logic and reason and comprehension, and you're making sure that you're taking care of self. Here's the next one I thought was kind of fun.
I keep my boys humble. Like my boys have never had a pair of Jordans. My boys don't do all that internet fly shit. I'm like your kids. And no, I don't give a I could be the biggest star in the world. Do not let me catch you being stupid. Mm-hmm. Do not. And my oldest gets it. My 15-year-old, he tells the other ones, he's like, yo, don't make dad mad. Because once you get one that's right, he gonna straighten the other ones out. Mm-hmm. So it's just that thing of, in the past 20 years, we've been living through the death of the American male. They have literally killed masculinity in our homes and our communities, for one reason or another. But I raised my boys to be young men. And however you feel about that, you feel about that. Right. But my boys will always be respectful. They will always say, yes, sir, yes, ma'am. No, sir, no, ma'am. They will always say thank you. They will always open the door for a lady. They will always make sure that their mother is taken care and provided for. They will always be men. And that's always, since they were 2 years old. Every time I left for a job, I tell my 15-year-old, you're the man of the house. Mm. You make sure these doors are locked every night, this alarm is on, you text me or you call me every night before you go to bed and you wake up.
I love that.
Because we're men. If I'm not there to protect, he got to be there to protect. Because you can have all the money in the world, climb through the window, that money means nothing. Right. You can have all the celebrity in the world, jump through the door, that celebrity means nothing. Yeah. So you got to have a little guard in there, And so for me, it's always that idea of American masculinity is very different.
An interesting clip because this, again, is talking about taking ownership and having ownership, responsibility, accountability for your actions, the obligation of the individual to be able to justify their actions or their decisions, and the responsibility is just to take the ownership of that, right? One of the things that I liked about this, and why did I bring it into this particular podcast, is because it refers back to something that I talked about, I think, during the election, when I said one's own can only correct one's own, meaning that only these people in various communities, these people, I'm sure some people look at that and go, what do you mean by these people? But the people that are in various communities, doesn't matter what they are, women, men, black, white, Asian, gay, straight, doesn't matter. Only the people in those communities that feel like they pull together. And you'll notice in the clip that it's 3 black men that are sitting there talking about their own community and they use the topic of toxic masculinity. The reality is that we're talking about the ownership and the accountability aspect. The toxic masculinity is just a soundbite from, media and, the cancel culture and all that garbage. But put that aside. We don't care about that really, because that's an emotional gaslighting type thing. What we're really looking at here is the reality of accountability and responsibility. And he is teaching his children about responsibility and accountability that throughout, their life and all the things that they do and ways of taking care of things. Let each care for self and all will be cared for. Well, that means family. Within the family, each person takes care of themselves. But as a family, that can be the mantra as well. Let each care for self. Let each family care for self, and each family will be taken care of. Let each city take care of self, and all are cared for. Let each state take care of self, and all will be cared for. You see how this works. This is what being sovereign is all about. This is what the independence of each state is all about, which makes up the United States. And you can push this out globally and be able to apply the same forensics to this of letting each care for self. And when you take responsibility for your actions, and when there are consequences for those actions, and the consequences and outcomes are not necessarily negative, good, bad, right, wrong, we don't care about all that. We're just talking about observing these things. When all of that is done, in an instant, life changes. It changes for you, the individual, on a dime. And imagine if it crossed the threshold of consciousness within humanity that this was something that we do. This is what we obligate society to. Can you imagine how all of this stuff, all of these controversies, all of this, violence, whatever it is that's going on, goes away? Because a person that has integrity and character forged from their accountability and responsibility, they're not going to do those things that create all of this chaos or violence and yada, yada, yada. I mean, the list goes on and on. Now, the question that often comes my way, which people will ask me, is, and they're obviously they're a bit skeptical, if you will, and they're like, are you trying to say that that's possible, that just by doing that it's going to change? And absolutely it will. If you do this in your own life, I guarantee you will start to see the changes in your life. But you can't scam yourself. You can't scam yourself and rationalize and justify all these behaviors over here in column A, but I'll take responsibility for everything in column B. No. You eat it all. You take it all. You made it, you eat it, and that's how this works. The next one that I really liked, this is an actor who's actually on a show that I started watching recently, which I found to be really good, actually. I started binging it a little bit. And this clip actually came from my friends, Dan and John. They were the ones that had talked about this guy and then sent this clip to me. So shout out to you guys. Check this out.
But with acting, especially the popularity of The Night Agent, that means you've probably become a bit famous. But I'm guessing you probably don't like fame.
I don't believe that actors should be famous. We're saying words that we're told to say. We're told how to say them. We're told where to stand. And then we're telling people how to vote. You should be quiet. You should do your job. You should be a jester, entertain people, and then shut the fuck up. And that's like...
I love that attitude. It's true.
That's what, we're the court jesters. We're there to perform a job, to entertain. And then all of a sudden the jester, because he's in the courtroom, starts to be like, I might want to go sit on the throne.
I really liked this particular clip. I thought it was very funny and, I thought it was pretty profound, actually. You don't typically hear actors talking in this manner. This gentleman actually was the actor that portrayed J.D. Vance in Hillbilly Elegy. If you have not seen that movie, boy, I highly recommend it. I have not read the book, but the story in that movie is remarkable. And you see a lot of accountability and responsibility over the years, and how some people cannot, for the life of them, get out of their disease pattern, their family disease pattern, and they wind up getting stuck in it. But in other ways, people within the family can see it, and they're able to say, hey, you got to go. You can't stay here. You've got a life ahead of you. It's really amazing. But in this particular clip, I really liked how he was very expressive and very funny, I thought, in being able to speak to the reality. And that is that entertainers are just that. They're entertainers. I love the reference to their court jesters. You come in, you perform, and you leave. The thing that happens a lot, not all, I don't want to generalize in that sense, but a very high percentage of people that are in the entertainment field are very irresponsible, unaccountable, do not even understand their choices or pay attention to their choices, and they find themselves in a place in life when they are a celebrity that they have access. And they think, because I have access, I have a responsibility to say something. Okay, I understand that, and I don't disagree with it. But if you don't have your own integrity and character forged by your accountability and responsibility, then you really should shut the F up. Because you're not being responsible by what comes out of your mouth. If things are coming out of your mouth that are telling people to rely on other people, or, we're all in this together, it's like, no, your shared suffering, no, I want no part of that. Let each care for self. You go ahead and suffer on your own. That's your reality. You made it, you eat it. And instead of trying to drag other people into it, or trying to pull people into taking care of your brother, it's like, taking care of humanity. Humanity will take care of itself if each takes care of him or herself. And then you don't worry about all of that. You're not worried about shared suffering or, shared burden of any kind, because everyone's taking care of themselves. And we don't need to hear from you if you don't have anything that is of accountability and responsibility to say. But as you can tell, there are a lot of people in this world that clearly don't care about that standard, and we hear from them all the time.
If you're looking for rage bait, there are many other outlets for you. That is not what we're doing here. What we're trying to do here, Monday was a really good example after the whole Oval Office meltdown between Trump and Zelensky. We published 5 or 6 very different perspectives on what that was and on the new Trump policy toward Russia.
So what's the identity? How do you maintain an identity for your brand while bouncing around?
Because the identity of our brand is truth seeking, and our premise is you cannot get to truth in an echo chamber. The only way that you get to truth is by sitting next to this is what makes it so different from any newsroom I've ever worked in. Sitting next to someone who disagrees with you, who you still respect, admire them, and collaborate with them. And there's certain guardrails, like no one that works here is a bigot. No one that works here, there's a fundamental belief in the American project, the idea that America is good and we are lucky to live here and we want to improve it. We might have different ways about how to do that. But and we set those guardrails really clearly. But then inside of that, there's a lot of room for disagreement. And we think that our audience is smart enough. They want to be treated like adults, and they want to hear the Steelman best version of different sides of an argument.
Lots to unpack in that one, but first of all, I want to start with her premise of you can't get to the truth. Okay, well, you can't get to the truth unless you get to reality. And you can't get to reality if you're in your emotions. I encourage you to go back and watch the very beginning of that clip. Barry Weiss is the person that's on there. What's interesting is that she rolls her eyes and she uses the terminology of this meltdown. She's already telling us that she has a bias, that she has a bias in terms of what was going on in the White House, and she's having an emotion about that. These things are very subtle. Why do I point this out? The reason why, even though we don't care about why, what is the reason that I point this out? Is that when you are interacting with people in your life, you can find these very small subtleties that happen in conversation where you're realizing they're not in reality, they're not speaking to truth, they don't take accountability and responsibility. And when you do this often enough and you start to develop all of these qualities within yourself, then you can start to recognize very clearly when people do not have these qualities and when they do possess these qualities. As she continued to go on, she talked about her brand and all the rest of that, but her brand is image building. And then she wants to try to virtue signal with all these other words and, people aren't bigots. And how does she know that? She doesn't know that. She can only know what someone tells her, but she'd have to be out of her emotions and into reality to observe, because that's the other big component, right? You have to be able to observe. And you cannot observe if you are in your emotion. And you cannot get to truth if you are in your emotion. And the only way it's going to happen to develop that responsibility and accountability and to see it in others as well as develop in yourself, you got to get out of your emotion. You got to be in the reality. The thing that I would try to do in my life on a daily basis, and I still do it, is I always want to be in reality. I want to speak to reality. I want to embrace reality. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how impactful it might be. How at one point, I was like in fear of reality. What now? Now what? But the more you're in the reality, the easier it is to navigate your life. You bring order out of chaos. You bring harmony out of chaos. You're able to live your life in a way that, again, I've said this so many times, right? Step onto the magic carpet and go enjoy. Enjoy every experience. Savor all of it. It can be small or large, whatever the experience is, you embrace the experience. And for me, I wouldn't want to be any other place. I'm not famous, I'm not rich, I don't have global impact, but for my life, I could not be happier than I am right now. And my gosh, how many decades has it taken me to get to this place? And I want to encourage you to get to that place as well. And we are once again at the end of another podcast. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope you enjoyed this. These clips were a lot of fun. If you get a chance, go back and take a look at them again. I thought they were very interesting. They could be, related to so many different aspects of your own personal development, and I hope that I gave a different perspective that maybe you were not thinking of, or if you were thinking of it, it brought a little more clarity, or it brought something to it that you hadn't considered before. Go ahead and again, hit that like button if you would, share it with your family and friends. If you'd like to subscribe, I'm always grateful for that. Let each care for self, and all in this world will be cared for. Make it a great week. See you next week.